crunch. Sorry. Welcome back to Tabletop RPG time. I guess this series has a name now. I have received a message on Skype. I need to make sure the planet is not on fire. Hmm. That may actually be, the... Oh no! That sounds thoroughly inconvenient, Raz, but I cannot address you right now. I am live. That does sound thoroughly inconvenient, though. It's unfortunate that you have to hear all that. If I am a little gaseous this evening, I forgot to eat dinner before stream, which I normally do eat dinner before stream, because otherwise then I am eating dinner at 10 o'clock at night and going to bed at 11, and that's not the best thing for your inside guts. So if I'm a little gaseous, that's probably why. That are these darn broken sodas that Raz talked me into while I was out there last, and I've always been someone who's like, ew, but I don't like sparkling water. The carbonic acid is bitter, and it is, but if you, surprise, if you put a flavor over top of the carbonic acid, it's tolerable. Library's like, I am not a drum. Do not percuss me. Anyway, hi, welcome back. Now that I've gotten thoroughly distracted by the concept of everything, you, sir, get to go up there. Up behind me. Stay there. That's a good spot to be. Um, Library is indeed our beloved. Everybody loves Library. He's a sweethearted little man. Where was I? Oh yeah, I took a week off. I was off juggling limes in Arizona. Oh, excuse me. I may try to edit those out for the VOD, but unfortunately for you live viewers, you get to hear those. I was juggling limes in Arizona, and the week off was nice. Mostly the week off from work. The week off from streaming felt a little weird. Hi. Yeah, hi there. Do you want to join us? Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Taking the week off from streaming felt a little strange. But we're back now. We're playing a new tabletop RPG that I definitely remembered to open the file for. Definitely am not hurriedly opening it right now. I'm glad I organized my folder. Um, but this is Cards and Dice, Sentinel 2.0 is what it's called. Well, actually, this might just be the 2.0 version of Sentinel. Regardless, we are playing Sentinel this fine evening. We need a deck of cards, which we will be opening momentarily. Remain calm. We are perfect and never forget to open our files before the game. Definitely, yes. I definitely do not start some of my D&D sessions by panically reading my notes from the previous session. No way. Sorry, library, I need my lap. So I am co-opting poor Gam Babbage's dice to be our solo RPG dice, because poor Gam existed for like all of 5 seconds, basically. So I'm borrowing his dice, no matter how bad of luck that is. Let's see, I need my d10s. Alright, what do we have here? 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 20. That's all of them. I got a bunch of dice while I was out juggling limes over in Arizona land. That's not correct. Let's see if I can grab one of them. I got an entire handful of these guys, which match my existing DM set. Not the ones I use for a campaign I'm currently running, but my generalized DM set. That I think I've told the story of before. Short version, a guy overheard me setting up a game and was like, hey, I've played D&D since a billion years ago, but I can't find groups anymore. Here are my dice. So, that's fun. I got some brass dice, which I feel very fancy for having. I got 2 brass D6, and I'm real excited about it. I like to collect D6 because I play a lot. run a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games. Dice noises. Anyway, uh, I run a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games, which you don't need D6 for, but, you know, meh. And I play a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games, so, you know, I like to have D6s around. Plus, they're just handy, you know? They're a good type of dice to have rustling about in your life. Anyway, these are formerly Gam Babbage's dice. Well, technically only some of them are. I have a, like, bone-themed set that are his for real. So hopefully I do not offend the dice gods by using all of the partial set that is partially Gam's for this, but yeah, these are the dice we're continuing to tell stories with, because sometimes you need dice. Um, I love Powered by the Apocalypse games so much. You roll 2d6 to do everything, and you, one moment. Glasses are bothering me, and that means I get to look over here and not say anything important in case the microphone or the captions cannot hear me. Okay, Powered by the Apocalypse games are so much fun. You just roll 2d6 to do everything, 2d6 plus a stat, and it's very story heavy. It's very, very heavily story focused, and it's very rules light, especially some of the more indie ones. And I love them very much because they're all very easy to learn. Exactly, versatile is the correct word. And it feels like there is a Powered by the Apocalypse game for every theme under the sun. I found one and I cannot find it again, but there was one that was based around telling like old Nordic stories, like Nordic settler stories, back when Viking was an occupation. Obviously, there's Monster of the Week, which I'm a known lover and enjoyer of. There's Glitter Hearts for, like, Power Rangers, you know, Sentai and Sailor Moon. Yeah, which is good because companies like medieval way more than sci-fi. It's true. There's a cyberpunk one called not the Grid. What is it? I so want to play Glitter. I also want to play Glitter Hearts. The problem is I can't run Glitter Hearts because I don't have the cultural knowledge. I've seen like half a season of Sailor Moon total. Someone else needs to run Glitter Hearts who actually knows what they're doing. So I'm not just like, haha, this is actually accidentally secretly just Teen Titans, which we should be playing Masks for. Which Masks is another great one. Um, that I have trouble running, but I love playing. I have trouble running because I'm like, oh, where's the damage counter? Well, your stats are the damage counter. That one's really good. It's great for like Teen Titans, teenage superhero stuff. What's another one that I'm thinking of? Oh, the same team, Magpie Games, is currently working on an Avatar: The Last Airbender one. There's another one that I'm forgetting that will come to me later in the stream, and I will explode with the knowledge of it. But yeah, Powered by the Apocalypse is very versatile, and there's basically one for every feasible theming under the sun. So if you're wanting to tell a specific type of story and you want to do an actual play, Powered by the Apocalypse is great for it. There's one. Oh, there's a D&D one. There's a D&D themed one called 6E. It kind of thumbs its nose at Dungeons and Dragons, and I think it's really cute. Anyway, I've digressed. Let's pay attention to the game we're actually playing tonight, which is called Sentinel. The basic mechanic of Sentinel is we, design the area we're in, and then we draw cards. And then once we draw a card, we roll a specific dice type based on the suit of the card. So, before we design the area we're in, we're going to open this fresh pack of cards, which I hope the holographic effect comes across on camera. It doesn't seem like it. And look, if we want to derail into a discussion about all the existent games ever, I'm all for it. I would love to, but we need to play Sentinel tonight, or I will not get around to it ever. So we will very carefully savor the peelies here. Oh, no. No, the Peelies were imperfect, incorrect, failure. No. Um, yeah. Sorry, I am very patiently trying to open this correctly despite having failed my little dexterity check here. Come on, come off of there. Well, some of the adhesive is still stuck to the box, but that's fine. We can remove that at a later date. Let's open our box of cards. And out they come. So, this is a really, like, I saw this on the shelf and I was like, I need these. Obviously there's a rules card. Oh, it's not even a rules card anymore. It's just, go buy the bicycle app for your cellular tellular. It's free. It has card game rules. You can buy more cards from there. Which is like, cool. I miss a rules card. But this is the kind of theme of the deck. Is this very like cyberpunk, dot matrix vibe. And I saw it and was like immediately. I was like, I need this. And so I bought it. Because I was impulsively purchasing things. What? Is this the other Joker? Or is this the blank card? I don't know. Do we have two Jokers here? Oh no, we do have two Jokers. That was the blank card with the circuit motif. I was hoping the cards would also be holographic like the box, but I suppose it's good that they're not. So we will leave the Jokers aside. We need one of them for this game, but we'll get back to that. We will set the dice out of the way, so I do not accidentally knock one of them off the table and have to spend 5 minutes looking for them, because that's the dice-oriented show version of needing to go find a nunchuck because you're playing a Wii game. Yeah, holographic cards would look nice, but they'd be very hard to see in this shot. Speaking of hard to see in this shot, there's a big old glare right there-ish, and I think I got rid of it. We're good. Okay, well, we will shuffle these cards carefully, because they are brand new. I'm just going to keep showing the card every time we're, the card that's on the bottom every time we shuffle, and hopefully it'll change each time. But we need to do this, what, 7 times for a perfectly random deck, I believe is the intent. But I really like these. I think they're great. They're on theme for a lot of the things that we're going to be playing them with. I believe that was that 4 or 5? Well, I missed, so it doesn't count anyway. I am working on acquiring a table cam, so, everyone can see what's happening soon, eventually. Once I acquire a table cam, I have a bunch of Carta-themed games that I'm really wanting to play, because I really enjoyed playing Punch Card Memories. And I also want to work on developing a Carta-based game. So, table cam will be quite handy. Table cam will be quite handy for many reasons, to be fair. And I'm looking forward to having table cam, because it also, through the magic of buying 2 of them, will mean that you don't have to see crusty built-in webcam anymore. I am making a TCG for funsies. That sounds difficult, and I hope that goes well. TCG design sounds incredibly difficult, and I do not envy you your task, but I hope you have fun. Okay, we have a shuffled deck of cards. So we shuffle the cards, we set them aside. We look at this sick, sick blank card. Like, look at the design of this. This is so cool. Um, and then we work on the design of what we're playing as. So Sentinel is played by drawing cards from the deck and performing actions associated with each suit, etc., etc. Before you begin drawing cards, it is important to establish several details about yourself and the sanctuary. So for the Guardian, we need to decide, what do we look like? What abilities do we have? How long have we been a Guardian? And how did you come to be the only Guardian? So I am going to resist the urge to recycle one of my old D&D characters, and we will build something from scratch. I think this Guardian is used to be one of many. I think there used to be many, many like smallish humanoid guardians that were less, less guardians of the city by themselves and more just kind of like a robotic servant class. And for one reason or another, the people that used to live here, they fled. We don't exactly remember why, but they left. They bailed. They ran away. Bravely, bravely ran away. They bravely ran away, and off they went. And then they left all of us. Can we? Is there anything in the rules that says you have to be the only? Oh yeah, you are the only guardian. So, initially, there was a big group of robotic, servants that kept the city running over time. Uh, over many years, the city slowly started to fall into disrepair as more and more of these robots conked out, and nobody had the ability to repair them. And so we watched essentially we essentially watched the whole city crumble while all of our friends also crumbled, and it was very distressing. But there are still things in the city worth keeping uh, away from the outside world, let's say. And so we are now the sole sentinel. So we are the only protector of a dead city full of technology that people really, really, really want. Yeah, aren't we, library? Um, and thankfully, we were well equipped for essentially movement in all terrains, usefulness in all disciplines. There's no shortage of our combat prowess. There's no shortage of our ability to produce fine art if asked. There's no shortage of our ability to, continue to maintain any system that is vital to the city's continued existence. Sure, all of the non-vital things in the city are rapidly going by the wayside because we are the only protector around here, so we need to be on guard as long as possible. So essential functions only are the only things that are continuing to get repaired because, surprise, we are the only person repairing essential functions only. We're kind of like a Swiss Army knife of an android diddle-dooting around. You know what? No, let's say gynoid, a female robot diddle-dooting around. Library's like, why are you petting me this way? Do we have a name? I'm gonna say we're named Athena. Someone thought it was a great joke to name all of the robot company, like all of our company of robots, that have now, gone and moved on to robot heaven or robot hell, depending on their personal life choices. We are named Athena, and someone thought it was funny to name all of the robots after various, pantheons, mythic figures, whether that be, a Greek hero or, someone like Ishmael or, someone like Gilgamesh, people people or things or concepts that were deific or mythic or heroic from all cultures. And we are named Athena, and we're the only one left. We have been a guardian for, many hundreds of years, just waiting for someone to come back and let us off the hook. What does the sanctuary look like? We've kind of described what the sanctuary looks like. It is a series of, crumbling, formerly well polished, science fictional columns that formed, a sort of emerald city looking thing. But as time has worn on, the sheen has gone off of all the glass, except for the observation deck windows, which were for some reason qualified as vital to the city's function. So they are the only windows we have any time to polish. So there is a thin line on the tallest spire that is still perfectly reflective and perfectly, remains a perfect viewport, so to speak, and it forms kind of an almost imposing set of glaring eyes as the sun sets. Where is it located? We're located in the middle of. You know what? Let's make it extra fun. We are an island, not a natural island. No, part of the vital function of the city is the buoys that keep, the buoyancy that keeps the city above water, and we are currently anchored down. And the city used to be able to move like a large cruise ship, but somebody dropped anchor before they bailed, and the city has not moved in many, many years. And we have, employed as much of our limited time. Lyra, you cannot eat the dice, baby.
But they look tasty. They look like they need cleaning. They're gross looking. I need to eat them.
You cannot eat them, baby. I know you want to, and I know they look tasty. They do actually look very tasty. Look at these things. Forbidden candy, for sure. You cannot eat them. I promise it will not sit in your stomach correctly.
But I want to.
I know, I know. Where was I?
He's like, I know. I'll stick my tail in Dad's mouth so I can eat the dice.
Good try, kitty. Oh man, Lambert. Someone once confused my dice for chocolate. Ooh, I bet that didn't end well. I bet that ended in some sore teeth. I have cat hair in my mouth. Sorry, baby. Oh, fine. You can stay up here, but you cannot eat the dice, okay?
He's like, I don't know. I think I want to eat the dice.
I know you do. It ended fine because they didn't get to try. Ooh, fair. At least you managed to stop them. Where was I? Oh yeah, one of our vital duties in our limited time is making sure the anchor continues to be functional so the city does not drift away and they can't come back to find it. What else do we need to answer about the sanctuary? Does any other life exist there? Any natural life that is not actively impeding vital functions of the station, essentially. The station. Sorry, I'm so used to being in space lately. Not the station. Anything that is not impeding the vital functions of the city, of the location, maybe. Uh, the locale. That sounds fancy enough. Anything that's not impeding the vital functions of the locale is allowed to continue to persist here. So there's no shortage of, in the underwater section of the city, slowly but surely fish have kind of migrated in through the semi-permeable water docks because they can come in, but, initially one of the non-essential functions was a semi-permeable layer to stop wildlife from coming in and populating the waters in the underwater area. But the semi-permeable layer, as long as it wasn't letting in, the bulkhead pressure, that was the only vital function marked vital. So, various aquatic wildlife have embedded themselves. Well, up you go. No trying to bite my wrists. Or was it? Various aquatic wildlife has invaded the lower levels of the city. And there's no shortage of birds and flies and lizards and whatever could manage to swim from shore or fly from shore to get here. Cutie, you gotta stay up there. He's like, nope, I'm sitting on the couch. That's fine. Sit on the couch. There's no shortage of wildlife, but there's nothing else sentient. At least we're pretty sure. We can't exactly speak dolphin, but we're relatively sure there's nothing else sentient in the city other than us. We're really the only thing left. What is there that needs to be guarded? There are various impressive technologies stored away in vaults in the center of the city. That's even letting aside the various technologies that sustain the city, like the various bio gardens that are considered vital and are still producing food, even though nobody can eat the food. Those semi-permeable membranes alone, if they were functioning, they could probably be vitally useful. Exactly. It boils down to there's too much technological mumbo jumbo and this and that to allow to fall into the wrong hands, because heaven knows what they could make with it all. And those riffraff out there are known to try and cause problems. So we then we shuffle the cards and we place it face down. And then we take one of the jokers. I'm going to take the blue one because I like it better. And we're going to place it randomly in the deck about a third of the way down. Let's say about there. This far. I won't look at the screen, but you all know what the last card now is before we pull the joker. One card at a time, draw and look at the suit. The face value of the card doesn't matter for now. Only the suit. Once you've drawn a card, complete the action assigned to the suit you've drawn. Once you've completed that action, you may draw your next card. When you've drawn the joker, the endgame is triggered, and your time as a guardian has come to an end. Roll 1d6 and answer the questions associated with the number rolled. Once you have answered them to your satisfaction, the game is over. I assume that means that that page was originally in front of the endgame. I assume we're rolling a d6 for the endgame, so somebody keep that in mind. Alright, should we know a tiny little bit about the outside world? I think we, as Athena, don't know anything about the outside world. We know that it's been long enough that whatever we used to know is completely moot at this point. All we know is there's been occasional bands of marauding people trying to come in and get whatever technologies they deem important, probably weapons technologies to be fair, that lie at the center of our city. Let's call it... Yeah, we never named this city. What should we name this city? I want to incorporate a color so we know what color the glass is in the city. Let's call the city Vermillion. So then we still kind of have the green, because Vermillion's green, right? Or is Vermillion the one that I always am like, Vermillion's green, but then Vermillion winds up to be like some kind of weird red? Because I think Vermillion and Chartreuse. Well, we could have a godly theme going. You know what? Yeah, I agree. See, now I'm tempted, instead of Vermillion, to lean into that godly theme. Let's just call it... Vermillion could also be the island itself. I like that. The the base of the city is called Vermillion because originally the base of the city was built on its own to kind of function as a go-between uh, submarine cities and the surface world, let's say. But then on top of Vermillion came uh let's just be on the nose about it. I think the people who built the city on top of Vermillion are going to be prideful enough to just call it Utopia. Just Utopia with a capital U. So we are defending Utopia. Utopia atop Vermillion from the riffraff. So we draw our first card and see what our duties entail us. Our first card is a Seven of Hearts. As the game states, hearts is the only part of that card that matters, but oh well. So, when a heart is drawn, you recall a memory of your time as Guardian. Roll 1d10 and use the value rolled to determine the subject of the memory, and answer the questions below about the memory. I should add, before we get started, we play until 10 o'clock, or until I draw the Joker, whichever comes first. Because I don't want to leave this cut off in the middle. But I need to be done by 10 for logistical reasons. So we'll roll our d10 here. Roll. That is a 9. So what do we remember? We remember a crisis averted. So relatively early on, let's say, this is defining what the memory was. Relatively early on, okay, I'm probably just going to yarn instead of answering questions individually. So the questions are, what is the memory? Describe the events of what happened. How old is this memory? What about it makes it hard to forget? And if you could forget, would you? So, relatively early on, let's say 5 to 10 years after everyone fled Utopia, there were still some people living in Vermillion. Eventually they would leave. We know that now. But for the time, the lack of people in Utopia was difficult to handle, because everyone in Vermillion was like, well, if there's nobody up in Utopia, we should be able to ascend, right? We should be able to get up into the city that we were denied access to so many years. Why are we still down here if nobody's up there? And at this point, let's say only 3 of us remained of the whole complement. We have us, Athena, and then we have 2 of our compatriots, to lean in on the Greek theme, let's say Apollo and Artemis. And Apollo and Artemis kind of posited the same question to us, but we kind of shook our head and we're like, the directives are right there. The people from Vermillion are not to come up to Utopia except for, a very limited set of reasons. We can't just let them do that. Sorry, crinkling. We can't just let them come up here without any kind of permit. There are still rules even though everyone's left. But I think this is why we remember it so well, is Apollo and Artemis essentially admitted... Sorry, I need to not eat while I'm talking, but I'm still very hungry. Apollo and Artemis essentially admitted that the rule made no sense and that they were not going to enforce it. And the directives we were handed were very simple. The directives we were handed before everyone left Utopia were very simple. We were told in no small words, no bones about it, that if any of the member of the guard any of the member of, our fellow androids and gynoids were to find themselves rebelling against the rules outset, they were to be deactivated, decommissioned, their parts sent into Central Intelligence, uh, in the center of the island to figure out why they were thinking that way. And, with a very heavy heart, we sent them off to Central Intelligence. We reached behind their ear and tapped that little hidden switch that nobody else knew about. Magnus! You are not allowed to pick at that. Yeah, you're gonna get your little beans stuck in the fabric, and then you're gonna sit there and you're gonna wail. And it's not gonna end well. You are not allowed to do that. Sorry. So we sent them off to, Central Intelligence. And we averted the crisis of an upheaval of the understanded. It is indeed bad Cato hours. Mere moments ago. There's some level of emotion despite our lack of ability to fight against our programming. That's what makes it so hard to reconcile, is we had, emotions, friendliness for our fellow robot. But we needed to reconcile that with the clear and present need to not get shipped off to Central Intelligence ourselves. And that's what makes us wish we could forget it, but we have to remember, because if we forget this, we could break the rules ourselves and leave Vermillion and Utopia entirely defenseless against the world. And so we have to hold this difficult memory, right here, of sending the last two people we knew, our last two compatriots, very early on, just sending them off to Central Intelligence, to having to let go of these people despite them being very important to us. Also, hello, Alternate. I'm happy to see you. Long time no see. My internet's been mushrooms lately, so I haven't been able to drop in. Okay, yeah, I think that kind of closes out that scene. So then we just pull another card and roll the appropriate amount of dice. The Ace of Hearts. So we're again remembering something of our time that got us here. We once again roll a d10. Roll. That's a 10. That's what that 0 means, for those unaware of how d10s function. We remember our greatest accomplishment. Could we get a recent memory? It's entirely possible. We define how old this memory is. I think our greatest accomplishment in our time as Guardian is learning to self-repair. Our class of being was not designed to be able to repair themselves. We were always intended to be maintained by whatever population of people lived there, whether it was someone smart enough to be working in Central Intelligence, or being able to just, walk our malfunctioning self into a electronics shop and talking someone in Vermillion into getting us fixed. We were always dependent on outsiders to be able to repair ourselves. But as everyone from Vermillion left, we kind of felt that pit in our metaphorical stomach, even though we don't eat anything. We kind of felt that pit in our metaphorical stomach form. We were like, oh no, something's gonna happen to me, and then the city's gonna be entirely defenseless. And as we're worrying about it, we were continuing to walk on automated guard, and eventually something broke. Let's say, Let's say that we were originally powered by a lithium cell. And a lithium cell has a limited shelf life. It's only able to be charged so many times. The lithium functionally deteriorates over time, decreasing in charge, the battery can swell, etc., etc. There's mechanical limits to these batteries. And eventually, we realized that, we run out of batteries to replace over and over and over again. It was very simple to find the replacement parts and install them ourselves, but true modification was outside of our mental sphere, so to speak. Um, and one day, 5 to 10 years ago, we realized that we were down to our last battery cell. Um, and it is a momentous day when we realize this cell is starting to deteriorate. We're looking at ourselves and going, I need power to exist, and I can't just stand there and be plugged in. No matter how much power Utopia and Vermillion have for us, it's kind of meaningless if we can't get access to any of it. And so, very delicately, we make our way into Central Intelligence, walking past, the disabled or outright, shut either the hibernating or the disabled bodies of many, many, many of our cohort, to walk into Central Intelligence's research and development lab and find that half finished, sitting on a work table, is a prototype for a biogas, essentially a biogas generator that would go in our torso where the battery belonged. And we can tell that it's half finished, but the operating principle is still sound enough that we can maybe, if we're careful not to break any rules in the process, finish it up and install it. And it takes a lot of gambling. It takes a lot of reproducing previous steps in the process, redefining over and over again what the working version of this thing is. And it takes a lot of tiptoeing around the rules, because whoever designed us very carefully designed the rules that govern our life to keep us from, going full Terminator on things. And one of the ways they did that was limiting our ability to uh, self repair, self heal, design new functions uh, without authorization. But we managed to tiptoe around the rules, and it takes us a long time. But eventually, we find that we've produced a very compact biogas generator cell, and that allows us to eat functionally. Essentially, we take in food into our mouth, chew it up, and spit it into some kind of container, chewed up to make it more effective in the generation of biogas. And then, once a day, we take the cell, we plug ourselves into the wall, take the cell out of our body, and pour the chewed food into the biogas cell and plug it back into us and keep going. And it's a very tense moment, as we just barely finished this biogas generator cell. We just barely finished it in time for the last battery we were subsisting on, to hold out for us. And with a splutter, the initial production of biogas works correctly, and we plug in the cell and very, very carefully unplug ourselves from the wall, and find that for a moment the world flickers, but we snap back awake, so to speak, as the cell generates enough power for us. And it's a very powerful memory. And we know that it would be very, very difficult to lose, because that was a defining moment for us. That recognition that we could work around the rules that we were given to get what we need out of the world. It took us a long time to stray out of operational parameters far enough to accept that. Okay, yeah, I like that. All right, next card is the 8 of spades. So now we get to roll a different dice because we've pulled a different suit. For spades, when a spade is drawn, there is something threatening the sanctuary and you must confront it. Describe the threat, what they look like, how they act, the weapons they wield, and what they're attempting to do, where they're attacking from, where they're trying to go, and the destruction they cause. After establishing the threat, roll 1d8. Okay, so here and now, we kind of snap out of our reverie as we hear a few rocks fall off of the top of the cliff that overlooks Utopia-on-Vermillion. We have bent ourselves around the rules enough that we are serving our purpose better. Correct. That's what makes that memory so important, is realizing the flexibility of the rules to allow ourselves to function more optimally. But there's a few rocks that fall off of the cliff and we snap to attention, zoom and enhance. You know, there's no physical zoom lens on our eyes, but it plays something akin to a motorized zoom, just for the kitsch of it all. Whoever was designing the visual module for this robot, for ourself essentially, had a sense of humor. So there's a little motorized zoom noise as we see on top of the cliff a small group of raiders. They are bearing weapons of an unknown signature. They look cobbled together. Indeed, they do have an eye for the theatrics. They look cobbled together. They look like they've taken bits and pieces of whatever technology remains out there, and as one of them hefts this rifle, you realize that it's attached to a massive backpack, and the gears are turning in the back of our head, essentially, like we're trying to analyze this thing. And as we roll over, ding, and understand what it is, we hear a and a fist-sized projectile strikes one of the lower windows of Utopia with an incredible force. This is a railgun. Whatever they're doing there, it is electromagnetically powered, and it is flinging a small small magnetizable projectile at an incredible speed. If that had struck anything but a window, we would be in trouble. And given the window that it struck, if it had gone a few feet further into the ground, we'd still be in trouble. What weapons they wield, how they're acting. They look desperate. They've clearly have been marauding from city to city, trying to find entertainment, sustainability, sustainable needs, shelter. It's not clear what they need. They're clearly trying to board. They're trying to board Vermillion. That's for sure. Whatever they want, they feel that they'll find it here. Yeah, that kind of well establishes the threat. So established that we were trying to be maybe the salvation that people in the city wanted in the past. Maybe they might just be looking for another chance at Utopia. Maybe they've heard it from the people that fled that the city was designed to sustain itself for hundreds of years. Maybe they're just looking for a place to live in comfort more than anything. Sorry, if I'm yutzing with my face a lot, I have been brushing the cats, and so there's a bunch of loose fur, making my face very, it's tickling my face, and it's driving me bonkers. Anyway, now we roll 1d8 to see how we handle the threat of these marauders with their, essentially, Gauss cannon. This big railgun-looking thing. Sure, it can only fire once every couple minutes, but once every couple minutes is enough to take down the city if we don't have a way to stop them. So we rolled a 1. What does that mean? 1 to 4. Describe what damage they did to the sanctuary as you were barely able to drive them out. So we immediately have a bright idea. Our bright idea is to reflect these projectiles back at them. If even one returns at, 3/4 of the velocity that they put into it, they're gonna run. They're gonna think that whoever lives on Utopia and Vermillion has some kind of wild, crazy weapons capability that they're entirely unable to counter. And with that in mind, we spend what scant minutes we have while we're waiting for the next projectile to be able to be fired at us, trying to build something that will redirect the projectile coming at us. And it takes us a while, and then we think we have something that'll work. It took a lot of mental horsepower to try and work around our rules, because one of the biggest rules we have is do no harm. It's been well established, that Asimov's laws are, flawed. That's the whole point of Asimov's stories. But someone thought they were a good place to start. And so, do no harm to a living being is a core tenet that we have. So we need to be sure that whatever we're doing will not actively harm them, just startle them away from here. And it takes us a long time, and they level the second shot, and it bursts directly through our improvised projectile reflection, completely ruining it. And we realize that it doesn't work. And this time, the shot is embedded so much closer to something vital that we're panicking. And again, this happens. Each time they're aiming at wherever we look busy. So thankfully, we're managing to draw their fire. And thankfully, we managed to draw their fire away from anything too vital, too unrepairable. But it takes us 5 or 6 shots to finally manage to build something that will reflect a shot correctly. And when it finally and goes to smash into something, the tension of the essentially rubber band that we've set up to blink this projectile back at them stretches, and it boom, and back it goes, slamming into the foot of the cliff. And these people just barely scramble out of the way as a massive chunk of the cliff falls away, blown away by the force of this projectile. And the raiders look at each other, and you can see they're saying something, but you've never learned to read lips. So you can see they say something, and 1 or 2 of them nod, and they bolt away. You assume that their reaction was, that took a while, but they just destroyed that cliff. And it did take you a while, and it takes a good little bit to enact repairs to the vital systems that were partially damaged by all these shots. Sure, none of them were, taken offline, but the damage was done. And it takes up, maybe a year's worth of work to finally get everything up and running again correctly. And worryingly, one of the things you're not sure is 100% working anymore is the automated garden. So we pull our next card. The 7 of diamonds means clubs, diamonds. Ooh, diamonds has got a lot happening. When a diamond is drawn, you've discovered an item in the sanctuary you've never seen before. Roll a d12 and use the value rolled to determine what you found and answer the questions about it. Okay, so we take our little d12 here and we roll. That's a 5. So, what does a 5 mean? That's a good question. Something you thought lost. What is it, and how long ago did you lose it? Why was losing it painful for you? And what does it mean for you now that you've found it again? We, in the process of trying to repair the automated garden, find something that we stashed away mere moments after we had been first activated to help keep an eye on the city. And we're particularly fond of the automated garden, not just because it now sustains our biogas generator, it provides us the vital food we need to continue living, but also because it's where we started. And in trying to repair the automated gardens, we find something that we really shouldn't have had. And if there were any other robots left, it would get us decommissioned. But there is, the rule that we need to keep the city guarded, and that kind of outweighs any potential flaws that we have, as long as they're small enough to stop, as long as they're small enough to not stop us from, I don't know, even better. We actually got decommissioned for a time for having this thing. For an uncountable amount of time, because our brain was offline while they analyzed why we did it. We were decommissioned for a while for this. We lost it, basically our entire lifetime ago, because when we were initially brought online, we found that we found a broken piece of silvered glass. Where it came from, we never really knew, but we stashed it under a grow bed in the garden, and every now and again, we would take it out and look at ourselves. Now, whoever designed us knew that introspection probably wasn't the best quality, and self-reflection is probably not the best quality in something that you don't want developing ideas of its own. And so, possession of anything that would allow us to see ourself outside of the registered parameters where that's allowed was, strictly forbidden. But somehow, we don't remember how anymore, we found a hole in the rules that we were given and kept this mirror for a long time. And when they found out, they decommissioned us for a while. They turned us off, and it hurt. It's always unpleasant for something that doesn't sleep to have lost any moment of consciousness. And it hurts to find this mirror again, because we pick it up and we look at it for a moment, and as soon as we see ourselves in the mirror, a pain response flashes across our mind, and we drop the piece of glass and it shatters. And that little bit of connection to someone we were at the beginning of our life is gone. And it almost hurts more to lose it permanently now than to have thought it lost and found it previously. Let's see if we get a lighter note here on the hearts. The 8 of hearts means we roll to recall a memory. Roll 1d10. That's a 6. My eyes are watering because of this one moment. I know, it's so sad. Poor Athena just wanted to see herself, and now she's lost that forever. Sure, she might be able to look at other whole mirrors, but that was a really important memento. Anyway, what are we remembering with the 8 of hearts here? We rolled a 6, which means a secret revealed. I think right after this, we go walking to Central Intelligence. Because that pain response was a shock to us. It came out of nowhere. We've never had it happen before. So we walk over to Central Intelligence to perform some kind of diagnostic on ourselves. It's an automated diagnostic, thankfully. And as we plug, the into the back of our neck, this computer starts rifling through our memories, and it settles for a long moment on a memory that we thought we had tucked away, never to be seen again. That mirror wasn't the only secret we had. Many, many years ago, when the city was still partially inhabited, when Vermillion was inhabited but not Utopia, we spent a long time trying to reach out to the people in Vermillion to try and get them to figure out why the people of Utopia had left. And in the process, we had made friends with essentially an electronics salesman. He was one of the few people, classified to be able to be doing, with the skill to be able to be interacting with electronics in a nuanced fashion outside of central intelligence. Most of the people who had any sort of electrical acumen, any sort of analytical acumen, any sort of programming acumen, were all snapped up and placed in central intelligence to improve the autonomous fleet, so to speak. But this one person, for one reason or another, we never really heard the whole story, was not allowed to be part of central intelligence. And so they ran this electronics shop, and we almost forgot that we had buried this memory of our time with them. Every day we were talking to them for a few moments that we had, whatever few moments that we had, like trying to get them to build some kind of communication device that would reach out and find the people from Utopia. And we developed some kind of rapport with them, and a friendship even. And just like that sort of introspection not being allowed, building a true and proper friendship with someone is frowned upon. It's allowed, of course. You need to be able to be, you need to have some cordiality, but it was frowned upon, and so you buried the memory. We buried the memory. We buried it as far and as deep as we could, and it didn't come up in analytics scans until right now. And you realize that the only connecting thread there is a potential rule broken. And we viscerally lived through the memory of talking to this person day in and day out, every day, until they finally acquiesced to us, and they were like, "Yeah, Athena, we'll try. I'll build something, and we'll see what comes of it." And we try to remember what came of it, what happened, and it won't come. Whatever happened in the last half of that memory, you buried it too deep for even the analytics machine to find. And eventually the analytics machine kind of withdraws from our neck, and we kind of rub away some feigned soreness and nod our thanks at the little scan machine, because the scan just shows a little thumbs up. Everything's fine. But we're a little worried that we can't remember that second half of that memory. Perhaps it'll come back to us. Hopefully it'll come back to us. Maybe one day we'll know, but for now we are only half remembering. Exactly. Perhaps we will remember. Perhaps it will shed some light on why the people from Vermillion had to leave. Who knows? But what I do know is we pull the Queen of Spades. So spades is... Have we pulled spades yet? We have pulled spades once. So spades is... When a spades is drawn, there's something threatening the sanctuary. Okay, there is another thing threatening the sanctuary. It takes several months before anyone else musters up the courage to come and hassle Utopia and Vermillion. But eventually, someone finally gets to the point of Perhaps it's enough desperation, perhaps it's enough bravado. We've never really understood the emotional nuance there, but regardless, there is a group of raiders. Instead of bringing this large, technologically driven, like, essentially magnetic stone thrower, they want to board. They want to board, and they are not dealing with any sort of weapons because they're hoping to board peacefully. They have a bunch of hang gliders, and they're all, stitched in carefully, are signs of peace, internationally recognized signs of peace, on these gliders, and they look at each other and they try and test the wind with a finger and find out if it's any kind of safe to try and glide down to the city. And they try. And we know that unauthorized boarders can cause all sorts of trouble. In a flash of a moment, we stand stock still as all of our processing power is poured into computing possible futures over and over and over, seeing they land here, they land there, they land in the water and come in through the semi-permeable barriers, and over and over and over, their predicted overconsumption eventually destroys the city. And as we snap out of it, we shake our head. We realize that they're a little too close for comfort here. And it takes us a long moment to figure out how we're going to repel them, only to realize that they're gliding. They're completely at the wind's mercy. And thankfully, one of the things the city was equipped with was essentially a weather alteration cannon. They were large fans designed to, pump the atmosphere full of, either prevailing winds or, some sort of particulate to seed for rain, this, that, and the other thing. They have 1,000 functions. And we're not quite sure of how well we're going to be able to operate them, but ideally, we could use their wind functions to just blow the gliders back up onto the cliff and cause no problems. So let's see how that goes. We're going to roll our d8. It's a 5. Did we roll a 5 last time? This dice loves 5. Describe how you're able to defeat the threat and how you know that it will return. So we come to bear behind the manual controls of these wind cannons, and they're all synchronized to the one manual control, and we're dialing in the correct angles very carefully with, obviously, robotic precision. And right when everything is perfect, we jam the firing buttons, and massive gusts of wind erupt from beneath the water, on the edge of Vermillion and Utopia, and this massive, essentially wind gust, this wind jet, rotates the gliders and blows them perfectly back onto the cliff, and they even land, competently, like you're landing in a run with a hang glider. They are perfectly set down. It works a little too well, unfortunately. And that's how we know they'll come back, because they're completely unharmed. And they think, oh, well, that was some freak wind, but bad luck. We'll come back later. They won't be able to make that perfect shot every time. And if the rumors are true, well, they won't be able to hurt us either. So we might as well be able to come back later. And they're planning on that. You can tell. Hopefully they still come back peacefully, but, the world may change. Won't it? Alright, we draw our next card. So many hearts. So many hearts. That's the Knight of Hearts. So we once again remember something in our time as Guardian. They may not even know it was the wind cannon, really. Exactly. They're not sure if it was just some freak of the climate's changing winds. They've heard stories of people getting caught in strange updrafts. So they're not even sure if it's something they blasted at us, but they're definitely willing to try again. So we once again remember something. Um, you need to determine the subject of the memory with our D10 here before we decide anything about it. That's a 1, a moment of peace. So, about halfway between now and when the people of Vermillion left, we had a moment of perfect peace. What does a moment of perfect peace look like for us? Well, nothing was in need of any maintenance whatsoever. The winds were calm, the seas were prevailing in such a way that we didn't even have to worry about keeping an eye on the anchor. Everything was perfect. And so during that time when everything was perfect, we just got to walk around the city on guard duty, uninterrupted, all day. And because we can, keep an eye on things relatively autonomously, we just kind of had a nice, peaceful day wandering the empty streets of Utopia and then wandering the empty sub-streets of Vermillion, just seeing the ghosts of what had been around here. We see the glittering glass of the observation decks as we walk by beneath them. And, underneath the city in Vermillion, we see the ghosts of 100,000 little shops. Here there was a ramen shop. Here there was a stir fry joint. Here there was an American burger joint. There's 100,000 varieties of every food under the sun. Even in Vermillion, where it was more cheaply done than the impressive opulent food of the people of Utopia. Despite all that, there was such variety that these people that used to live here, they loved it. And even though we do wind up eating now, sort of, we find that the lack of an ability to taste is feeling more and more like a design flaw. We're just kind of shoveling, roughage and whatever will generate the most gas into our mouth, unthinking. And for a moment, before the introspection filters catch us, we wonder what it would be like to taste food. And we once again think about this, after repelling the people on gliders, we once again wonder, what would it be like to taste food? It's hard to... It's a difficult thought to consider for us. We're straining at the edge of what is allowed and what is not. And we look fondly on that memory and realize that it would be very hard to forget that first moment of trying to test our introspective abilities and not finding something to trip over. So we'll pull the next card, the Jack of Diamonds. That means we roll a d12. We've discovered an item in the sanctuary. So we will roll our little d12 here and see what we find. That's cocked. That's 12. A note, barely legible, on a worn piece of paper. How much of the message are you able to read? What does it say? Can you tell who it was meant for? And does finding it make you question whether or not you are truly alone here? So we are walking. Our usual guardian route, so to speak. Walking, in concentric circles slowly from the outside of the city to the inside, spiraling inward and then heading downward into Vermillion and spiraling back outward. And as we are riding the elevator down into Vermillion, the elevator stalls for a moment. grinds to a halt and kind of blink in confusion. A few emergency red lights come on, and we see, bathed in the red light, through the little viewport window on the elevator, a note scrawled in the elevator shaft. It's dated, by our reckoning, relatively recently. Recently enough that there were no people here. And it is a panic-stricken message in a language that we can't quite read. It's something that we knew was going to happen in the people remaining outside. Linguistic shifts happen regardless, especially with the interaction of peoples and cultures that we're not expecting to be interacted. So we can't read what's on the wall. We can't read whether their panic is at not being able to get out of here, not being able to get in here, what's the deal, whether they feel isolated. It's entirely illegible to us. We can maybe see how eventually we could try and read it, but for now it makes us doubt that we've had that perfect Sentinel's grace in order to stop everything that came in here. We don't know if there's 1 or 2 or 3 or 100 people living in the walls away from our watchful eye, stealing little bits and pieces of what they can while we are wrapped up in maintaining the important operational functions of the colony, like polishing the observation windows. And we realize that as the elevator once more starts again, we realize that we haven't polished the observation windows. We'll need to go do that. And as soon as we step off the elevator, we step onto one that was heading upward, without questioning whether we had summoned it already by interacting with the network or whether someone had pressed the button. And we head back up to Utopia and polish the glass, wondering if we really have stopped everyone. Okay, and we pull our next card, the Queen of Diamonds. So we once again find something. Let's roll a d12. That's on the floor. That doesn't count. It super doesn't count if I can't find it. Oh no, that's quite unfortunate. Where's the dice? Hang on. Where did it go? Not like this. Okay, found it. Don't tell anybody I dropped the dice. It's bad luck. That's a 3. I just rolled now while I was sitting down. 3. A locked box with no key. What does it look like? Are you going to try and open it? And if so, how? What lengths are you willing to go to discover what is inside? And once you get it open, if you get it open, what do you find? The dice goblin tried stealing it. Honestly, there is a little dice goblin on the floor right now. He's looking up at me. His name is Library. I was genuinely concerned that he had jumped down and batted it away to try and keep it from me so he could eat it. So we are running our routine check around the area of Central Intelligence. We are commanded to keep a very close eye on Central Intelligence because, that's where all the cool stuff is. And we find one day something that we've been looking past 100, 1,000, 100,000 times, that finally something on its outside has worn away far enough to stop our visual filter from making us not perceive it. And it is a formerly perfectly shaped dodecahedron like this guy. And it is formerly perfectly shaped because there is one of the faces has a massive dent in it now. Was it a bird dropping something onto it? Was it the mystery people that might be living in the walls trying to dent it? Who knows? We don't. But what we do know is it's locked. And we don't quite understand the nature of its locking. And we realize that it'd probably be a waste of processor cycles to try and find a way to open it, right? But we gotta find out what's in the box, right? What if it's a security issue, right? It's definitely a security issue if we don't open it. And for 4 days, we stand stock still, unemoting, unmoving, all of our thought focused on trying to figure out how this box is locked. Because you're right, it could be dangerous, and we need to stop it. And so we spend 4 long days entirely unaware of everything. Our processor spinning faster and faster, calculating endless possibilities, until we finally understand that the dent is the lock. We extend a single finger very slowly out toward the box. And in the dent is the lock. First, a little suction cup extends from our finger, and we pull the dent out, and the lock is perfectly shaped. It's just a simple key lock. We could generate the key we need for that easily, trivially even. Why we even spent so much time trying to figure out cryptographic analysis of the network around us, it feels like a waste of time now, but it was an avenue we had to pursue after all. And so we extend our smallest finger forward toward the lock, and it forms into the perfect shape of this key, and we open the lockbox. And as the lockbox's door creaks open, a light hits us, and we are blinded for a moment. And the next thing we know, the lockbox is open, empty. We have a sense that we looked in the lockbox and got something, but we can't remember. What was in there? Every time we strain to remember, even as we're walking later, as we're running our typical guardianship path, we try to think back to what was in the box, and it's a blank space of time. Sure, it's only 5 minutes, but anything could have happened in those 5 minutes, right? We pull another diamond, and we find something else. So let's find out what we find by rolling a d12. Another 3. A locked box with a no key. So, this time I think the locked box is in the same spot as the dodecahedron lockbox, but this time it's a 12-sided lockbox, and we immediately recognize the problem. We immediately recognize the pattern. Last time there was one of these lockboxes here, it was a 20-sided shape. Now it's a 12-sided shape. That's a human choice of pattern, right? Definitely. We're not injecting thoughts into this pattern recognition. It's definitely a human-recognized pattern. There's something in this box. We need to know. We don't remember what was in the other box. So we scan the 12-sided box and find that it is without flaw. No openings. No obvious key. And so we once again look around carefully, and we, even reach out to we reach a hand out to the wall and touch it, and immediately scan all of the many, many cameras in Utopia-on-Vermillion just to make sure nothing's around. And nothing is visually around that isn't normally there. And so once again, we start leveraging those potential cryptographic locks that we were generating for the 20-sided box. We start throwing them at this thing.
And after 2.5 days, it's not clear, it blurs. But eventually, after 2.5 days ish, to our reckoning, we eventually find that one of the codes works, and off pops the top face. It spirals away into the street, clink 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 clink, and we start to look down into it and find a smaller 10-sided shape inside of it. We take it out, we look at it all around, and we sigh. We'll have to come back to this. We set it down, kind of give it a little pat, and we go about our merry way. 5 of clubs. I don't think we've ever pulled a clubs yet. The clubs. When the clubs is drawn, time is passing. Roll 1d4. The value rolled represents the number of years that have passed since the last card was drawn. For each year that has passed, answer at least one of the following questions. What did you lose? What did you gain? What did you learn? What has changed? So, we need to roll our d4, this little guy. That's a 1, so 1 year passes. Clubs are scary here. It's just years passing. So a year passes. And the passage of time in this game in particular feels so scary. I know, it's like, where's the time going? Are there going to be people? What's happening? We spend an entire year that seems to be relatively uneventful. And, we're obsessively checking as the year goes by. As we get further and further into the year, we more and more obsessively start checking. We've got a bad feeling. They could be anywhere. There's people in the walls. Remember that note we found? What about the weird lockboxes? And we hyper-focus more and more of our time on trying to find some kind of gap in the recordings, some kind of area where the cameras are blind that we could enter, some kind of anything that would allow us to see these theoretical rats in our walls. And more we spend our time on this until something mission critical almost breaks. There's a small antimatter matter interaction reactor in the center of the city. The generation of antimatter takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of delicate equipment, and it takes a lot of delicate equipment that needs to be maintained very carefully. And one day we almost lose all power in the city because we're so hyper-focused on trying to find some imagined invader that we almost let the entire city lose power. If the entire city lost power, we'd lose everything. Not only ourself, but also anything that would allow the city to continue to be. Essentially, power is vital. It not only runs, ourself and all the electronic components, but also keeps track of all the, needs of the various wildlife that have taken on residence here, because for some reason the computer has decided that, oh no, we can't just get rid of the wildlife, we need to sustain them. And part of sustaining them is generating enough food. Well, they're running an entire ecosystem. That means the garden eats up a lot of power. And, it only takes us a few moments to fix the reactor, but our outlook has changed. We need to just go back to business as usual. We need to stop worrying about this. There's no reason to be concerned about invaders as long as everything's functioning correctly. It doesn't matter if they've gotten in under your nose. It's only an issue when they start causing problems. That's the rationalization we give ourselves. We pull another card, a diamonds. We find another object. What do we find? That's a good question. That's a question we're asking of our little D12 here. That's a 2. Thankfully not a 3. We don't have to open the 10-sided box. Something you know is dangerous. What is it? How do you know it's dangerous? What danger does it pose if not stopped or contained? And is it a bigger danger to you or the sanctuary? So as we mentioned, the city has decided that it's a good idea to sustain the local ecosystem. At considerable cost, too. And eventually one day we're going, we're patrolling, we're repairing, and we find that a nest of birds has landed in what used to be our charging port. Sure, we don't use the charging port anymore. We use the biogas generator, but that's still a vital point of access for us. If any of if the maintenance station in if the diagnostic station in Central Intelligence is for some reason no longer able to interface with us, then that charging port's the only interface that we have with the city. Anytime we need to command large parts of the city for defense or anything, that charging port's the only access we have. If there's no manual controls anyway. So it's incredibly dangerous to the city at large that these birds are here. But the trouble is that these birds being here, we can't harm them. Does it count as harming them if we move them incorrectly? And we're spinning, we're essentially, anxious about, can we move these birds without harming them? We need to not harm the ecosystem, just like the city is. What are we gonna do? Why are the birds here? Why did the birds decide to land here? I need to be able to interact with the city. What's gonna happen? And we sit there and we spin. Essentially, you know how Max have that little spinny beach ball. If we had a little screen on our forehead, that's what would be happening, because we're too busy spinning about all the what ifs, how dangerous this could be the city to actually take action for what feels like a long time. Sure, in real time it's probably not all that much, but perceptually to us it feels like forever. And after a long, long moment, the birds kind of one of the mother bird kind of lands, and we realize they're all there. We need to move now. In goes our hands underneath the nest, pick them up, set them in a disused charge port that's not ours. Crisis averted. For now. But that's still, an ever-present danger. Perhaps we need to maintain our charge port a little better. Pull our next card, the 4 of Spades. I believe Spades is time passing? No. Spades is another threat. Clubs is time passing. When a spade is drawn, there's something threatening the sanctuary. You must confront it. This time, the humans who are threatening the peace of the sanctuary don't come from the cliff. Maybe they've learned their lesson that coming from the cliff is not the best idea. We are looking out the observation window in Utopia, the tallest observation window even, making sure that this observation deck is in functioning order. It's one of the vital pieces of the city, after all. And we are spending a long few moments watching the sun sink into the water. And sure, we don't have a lot of appreciation for the subjective beauty of the moment, but we're given just enough of that subjective appreciation such that we can understand that the observation deck is functioning correctly. When, as the sun finally dips beneath the water, into our brain beams a signal from Vermillion. They have detected a few sonar pings. They're in the process, the city is in the process of rotating the detailed sonar scanners and various, radars and lidars to try and Come on, library. Uh, get a more detailed picture, but for now, the base sonar just tells us we have 3 pings. So open a window. Uh, we open a window on the observation deck and slide down the side of the building. Thankfully, none of the windows underneath the observation bay are mission critical, so someone else will fix them. So we dig our fingers in and break all the windows on the way down. It's fine. Someone else will fix them. At least that's the thought we have in the moment. We will chastise ourselves later. But for now, somebody else will fix them. We need to go defend the city. And we finally entered the battle bay, so to speak, of Vermillion, which is just a little loosely attached bubble that rotates around the city, mostly just firing light electric pulses to dissuade any more fish, because if we took on any more fish in Vermillion, surprise, the city would be overstrained. Because, 1 fish becomes 2 fish, becomes 4 fish, becomes, exponentially growing. The city has determined that the amount of fish they have right now is the acceptable limit. And we hop into the little battle bubble and it ding, finally rotates around to be facing the invaders. And they are essentially just in little bitty submersibles, just barely big enough for 1 person each. The trouble is that the submersibles, when chained together, have enough control over the localized currents that they're producing that they could theoretically loosen the anchor, which is quite remarkable in its own right. The anchor has been anchored there for many hundreds of years. It's basically part of the ecosystem at this point. But they could make the city lose anchor, and if the anchor starts ascending, it's not going to stop ascending. It will completely unmoor the city, and it's vital that does not occur, because us as Athena does not have the clearance to be able to pilot the city. That was one of the safety measures built in, and we're not going to be able to think our way around such an ironclad decision. And so we look at the invaders coming in and make our decision. What are we going to do? They are potentially threatening the mooring of the city. We rolled a 5. Describe how you're able to defeat the threat and how you know that it will return. So we know that we cannot hurt them, but we can redirect them. So what if we get... Our initial thought was, what if we get ahead of them, we unmoor the city ourselves and pilot it away from them. But then we realized, no, not allowed. So we take a long moment, and then we realize that we have sonar. The city knows how to communicate with the localized fish population via that sonar, and we race out of the battle bubble up to our charge port that we just recently saved from those little birds, and sit down heavily in the charge port and communicate the idea that we have to the city very, very rapidly. And the city percolates for a while. It thinks a lot slower than we do because it's got a lot of things to keep track of. And the invaders get closer and closer. They're bouncing closer and closer, and they are about to close ranks around the anchor and unmoor the city and take it with them. And just as they're about to close ranks to be able to fire, the city gives us a little thumbs up in our brain, and immediately many, many rapid fire sonar pulses are occurring. And essentially all of the fish nearby that have been trying to get into Vermillion for the past uncountable years swarm these little submersibles, and the submersibles realize that
they don't really want to offend the local wildlife if they're mobbing the subs for no apparent reason. We need to get out of here, or we're gonna hurt somebody. And the fish essentially just kind of direct them in a big old school cloud away from the city, and they buzz away, in their little submersibles. But they'll be back, just like the glider people will be back. All right, I think we're almost out of time, so I think we need to. Well, let's see what this last card is. How many cards do we have left? 1, 2. I'm not gonna look at these. Okay, I'm not gonna look at these cards. I looked at one card. I'm gonna hold these cards up. I'm gonna pop out chat so I can see it. Oh, I can't do that. Hang on. I have an idea. I'm going to hold up cards until I see the Joker. Until you see the Joker, and I'm gonna open chat on my phone so I can see when you all see the Joker. How does that sound? No thanks. Don't update that. I'm gonna open my chat over here, and then someone say when I pull the Joker and how many cards we have left. So that's 1. That's 2. That's 3. That's 4. Okay, so the Joker is how many cards in? 3 or 4? Magnus, this is why I keep telling you, leave the door alone. You got your little bean stuck. I had to get up and unstick you. Sorry. We have a naughty boy. Naughty boy detected. You just missed Saw? Oh no! Tell you what. We've got a naughty boy. Naughty boy detected. Yeah. You can't be hassling the door. Tell you what, if it's since it's more than 1, 2, 3, 4, if this is not the Joker, I think we just need to call it and enter Endgame anyway. So is this 5th card the Joker? Wait a minute, I can look at this last card. It's not, it's a king. Hang on, I'm gonna see now that we've determined. Oh no, yeah. We would. Yeah, we would have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We would have had 12 cards before we got to Joker. I'm taking way too long on these cards. It's just that my screen that is bad. The Joker was blue, so we would have had 12 cards. I I don't think we could get through 12 cards in 4 minutes. So we're gonna enter the end game. So we're gonna pretend that we just drew the Joker. This guy. When the Joker is drawn, the end of the game is triggered, and your time as Guardian is coming to an end. Roll 1d6. Based on the value rolled, read your ending prompt and answer the questions that come with it. Once you've answered everything to your satisfaction, your time as a Guardian has ended, and so has the game. So we roll our 1d6, and our guardianship comes to an end. It sneaks up on us quickly. We roll a 2. You've done all you could for as long as you could, but despite your efforts, the sanctuary is falling. You fought valiantly, a lifetime spent dedicated to the safety of this place, and you'll use every ounce of energy you have left to stand in defiance of what threatens it. But the forces that threaten the sanctuary are more powerful than you, and sooner rather than later you're going to succumb. When you do, the sanctuary and all held within will be lost. What's the threat that finally overcomes you? What form does it take? How long does the confrontation last before you know you've lost? What happens when the sanctuary is taken? And what's the last thing you remember? So excuse me, library, sir, you cannot eat that. I know it looks very tasty. I understand. But you cannot be eating the dice. Papa, you look like candy.
Yeah. Uh, it does not take long after we repel uh, the aquatic invaders to find that these people that we've turned away from Utopia and from Vermillion have all met each other in the wilds beyond the city, and they realize that there's only one of me. There's only one Athena, and that's the only thing left guarding this city from anyone. And they think, well, the robot can only do so much. And so they do what humans do best. They band together, and now we have an assault on three sides. The the glider people have built a ramshackle airplane, so we're being sieged from the air initially, and we're trying to blow them out of the air with the air cannon without managing to hurt them, and it's growing more and more difficult. And just as we're about to land a good shot, the people um, with the railgun come back, and they've found their perch once more on what remains of the cliff, and they fire one massive projectile because they've been busy between the last interaction. They've built a much larger railgun. They fire one massive projectile and destroy the piping that allows the weather control system to work. And our vision fritzes as though we've been hit. Because anytime a mission critical anytime a mission, we never knew this, but anytime a mission critical item is destroyed, we take the damage too. And we we cough out a cloud of grayish yellow smoke as we also are forced to reflect the damage to our home. And we realize that, ooh, we can't hold on for very long like this. And just as we think we can't hold on for very long like this, the sonar goes off again. The battle bubble is facing the correct direction for it. We see those four submersibles coming our way. And we realize that we're not long for here. And fittingly, as we realize we're not long for here, that becomes the last thing we think. Something happens. We couldn't track it at the time. But a signal of some kind passes between the three groups, and we take massive damage all at once. The anchor breaks loose, and two more vital systems are destroyed one after the other, and we had been plugged into our charge port that was allowing us to interact with the city. We are spat out of the charge port like a piece of chewed gum, and we slam against the wall. That grayish yellow smoke spewing from our mouth. Magnus, please, you gotta let me finish telling the story, man. You can't be hassling the trash can. There we go. You just needed me to stand up, apparently. That grayish yellow smoke pours from not only our mouth now, but also our nose and our ears. And our last fading thought is, I hope they get what they want. And the confrontation lasted mere minutes. You know, it felt like years to us as we were plugged into the city and our perception was altered. But it lasted a few minutes to the people there. We had been doing our best to prevent the fall of the city of Utopia and the undercity of Vermillion for years. Hundreds, nearly 1,000 years. And we'd managed pretty well until right now. We hope that they get what they want out of the city. But we'll never know. Will we? And that's the last thought we have for a long, long time. Our perception cuts suddenly forward many, many years in time, but we're not sure how many as we awaken once more. And we look around and we try to ping, something to get a sense of what year it is. And as we're about to, a person sitting in front of us smiles and says, "Welcome back, Athena. It's been 300 years since we last saw you. Seems like Utopia needs a little help, despite our best efforts. Luckily for you, your friends can come along this time." And for the first and only time that we can remember, we smile. And that's the note we're going to end our story on. I am a big fan of leaving these stories open-ended for you all to build more on the world that we've created each week. You are free to, fill in the blanks of the many years of what happened to Athena day to day. You are free to fill in what life is like in the new Utopia, the new Vermillion, whether those cities remain named that way. What life is like for Athena after she finally gets to smile. That's all up to you. Just remember to remember to point it out to me if you're working with anything like that. I don't mind if you do what you want with it. Just let me know what's happening. I would like to see. Anyway, this has been Sanctuary. This is another one that I am very much excited to come back to because there's a lot. Another game can always work with the in-between of those 300 years. Exactly. We could focus another game in the pile on what happens in those intervening 300 years between the rise, the fall, and I hate to put it this bluntly, but resurrection of Athena. Something we could tell that story. You never know. Or anyway, this has been Sanctuary. There is so much more game to be had here. There's 100,000 different settings you could work with. I could actually, not resist the urge to recycle one of my old D&D characters because this could literally be the backstory of one of my old D&D characters that I never got a chance to play. Like, her whole shtick is she's a warforged who was originally designated to protect this old monastery, and then something happened, and eventually the monastery was Una protecting the dead remains of Quotas. No, don't put Quotas dying into the world. No. You guys would have to, completely fail the main quest line, and then 3 or 4 other things would have to happen for Quotas to die. Oh. What a thought. Alternate universe? Ooh, yeah, bad end. But this character of mine, her whole backstory revolves around she was the guardian of this monastery, and then eventually someone convinces her, "Hey, you don't need to be doing this. The monastery is super done for. Come be an adventurer." That's her whole backstory. She's a warforged who has literally her social interaction has rusted, so to speak. And I might, if we ever come back to Sanctuary, I might do that. Anyway, I gotta call it a night. This was super, super fun. I really liked this one a lot. I like that it is arranged. It is arranged very nicely to read as a game too. some of these games have that problem. Anyway, I have more thoughts, but they boil down to I really like this, and I wish the cards would matter beyond a suit. It's because otherwise you could just roll a four-sided die. Uh, anyway, let's see. Who are we gonna go say hi to? That's a problem for streaming me, not recording me. I hope you all have a great week. We'll be back Friday with more paper cuts. Monday with more of this. Not necessarily Sanctuary, but more tabletop. See you all then.